In the marketplace, when we take the millions of different string types that are available to us, we can break it down to typically 3 types of construction. So we have natural gut, which is made from cow intestines. It takes about 3 cows to make the 12-meter length that we need to string a racket. The second type is multifilament. So this is made from non-natural products, but it's effectively hundreds of fibers woven together to create one string. And then the last string type is polyester. So this is now the most common string type used by players. On tour, it's probably used by about 85 to 90% of players. And this string type's extruded plastic into a long piece of string to achieve our 12 meters that we're looking for. I'll talk now further about how each of these strings behave based on our lab-based testing results. So the first thing that we want to look at is how string stiffness aligns with string durability. So typically, looking at this graph, we can see top right corner, we have high stiffness, high durability. That's our polyester string type. That string is really, it's a modern technology. So the reason players, and it's the #1 string type used on tour, and there's a good reason for it. It's really control orientated, and it also provides the most spin of any string type. So what that means is players can take huge cuts at the ball and have exceptional control whilst generating their own power.
Welcome to Coachlife, where tennis isn't just a game, it's a relentless pursuit. The coaches here aren't the ones looking for fame. They're the ones who forged champions in the shadows. They are the junior coaches, the quiet achievers who crafted the legends of today. Players like Iga Swiatek, Coco Gauff, and Taylor Fritz. These are the coaches who know the grind, the discipline, and the passion it takes to go from a kid with potential to a world-class athlete.
The second string would be multifilament. Multifilament's all about trying to make your string bed softer. And it's really suitable for your general players, your weekenders, and those who don't break strings often. If you're a big string breaker, you can almost immediately rule out multifilament because it just doesn't last long. And then natural gut, that's for players looking for the ultimate performance. It's really geared around providing more ball speed. It's really soft on the arm as well, and it's actually really quite durable unless you use it in hot or humid conditions where there's moisture in the air. As we move down to our left-hand corner, we have strings that become lower in durability, they become lower in stiffness. So we have natural gut, which is a little bit in the middle, and then we have multifilaments on the really low side of both durability and stiffness. So the second thing we want, or every player wants to know, is how do the characteristics of the strings behave? So power, spin, control, comfort, and tension. How long is my string going to play at its optimal playability? So this graph on your screen right now, you can see here we've broken down those 3 string types in natural gut, multifilaments, and polyester, or monofilaments we call it. So natural gut, you can see it's a really outstanding performer across both power, spin, comfort, and tension maintenance. Where it falls down a little bit is in control. Now that's just due to its erratic nature. Because a string's more powerful, you're naturally only going to find it to have, travel a little bit further sometimes, a little bit shorter other times. The second string, which is again the most common that we see in today's marketplace, monofilaments, we can see here, it's the lowest powered string in this string type comparison. It's also the stiffest, so the comfort rating is naturally lower than all other string types. But where it benefits is through producing high amounts of spin and high amounts of control. From a tension perspective as well, they're typically quite poor because they react differently to the others in terms of they're plastic, so they don't expand and contract in an elastic way. They just get longer and longer and longer every time you hit a ball. The last type, multifilament, this is somewhere in the middle. So it provides pretty decent power, okay spin, typically really good comfort, and pretty good tension control as well. But where it sort of suffers a little bit is through its durability is really poor, and typically from a control perspective, it's a little bit more erratic like a natural gut as well. So next, now that we've chosen the string type, we need to look at the string gauge. So how thick the diameter of your string is. So typically the most common string diameter that we see in the marketplace is 1.25. 1.20 is on the thinner side, 1.30 is on the thicker side. Now, something that we typically find when we're looking at your recreational or the majority of players that play tennis that aren't professional, they should be using strings that are 1.20 or thinner. However, the challenge we have as an industry is a lot of the time suppliers don't bring those strings in just purely because they have lower durability than the thicker gauges of 1.25 and 1.30. So what we've done here in this presentation is we're comparing strings from the same string in gauges from 110 all the way to 130. And ultimately here, there's a lot of overlap. So the string gauge doesn't change as significantly as, say, string type, but we do have some typical outcomes where thinner will more often than not result in a string that's more playable. It has lower tension control and it breaks faster, but your experience as a tennis player will be much higher with that lower gauge string. Versus on the other side, it's all about prioritizing durability over performance. So a 1.30, you can see there typically will have lower power, lower comforts, and control might be a little bit higher just because it's a bit thicker. So when the ball hits the strings, it's going to go more direct off the string. But ultimately, if we're thinking about summarizing it, thinner gauge, more playable, less durable, thicker gauge, more durable, less playable. So typically, if we're thinking about string gauge, 1.25, as I said, most common string gauge in the marketplace, that's the one that you're most likely going to have any stringer put in your racket. 1.25, however, is most suited to performance players or players that are playing a lot of tennis and might be breaking their strings once a month or less, okay? If you're never breaking a string in your life, which is 85% of players, you can get away with strings as low as 1.10. And typically, if we were stringing for a player like that, we're going to put something no thicker than 1.20. And the reason is we just find you have a much better playing experience with that, as well as, again, your risk for injuries are much lower as well. So another common question we get asked about strings is how does color affect performance? Because we can obviously see in the marketplace where you might have the same string in 4 different colors. So here we've done that comparison for you. And ultimately the outcome is that different string colors will affect performance. And they do it in different ways. But more typically speaking, if we're making a generalized assumption, darker colors, especially those like black and really dark grays, they will play a little bit stiffer and be more control orientated compared to a lighter yellow or white that will be a little bit more lively. It will be a little bit softer. That's in the same string. So the string color, the pigments that go into the creation of the strings will actually have some minute or different changes to the performance and what you feel when you play with that string. Why are strings important? Strings are like the engine in your car or the tires on your vehicle as well. So you will adapt them to give you different performance outcomes. And what we'll ultimately do is tailor the strings to your needs. So if we break the skill or the playing level of a tennis person into 3 different tiers, we have our performance athlete or our tournament player. So that's number 1. So that type of player is going to look for typically strings that are a little bit more control orientated. Which is typically your polyester type, because they swing at the ball so hard that they need that added control. Then you're looking towards your weekend but performance player. So someone who plays competitions on the weekend or lower level tournaments, they will probably use either, again, the polyester type setup, typically if you're a bigger hitter, or if you're someone that's counter punches a bit more or doesn't necessarily care about durability, you might be using a hybrid setup with multifilament crossed with polyester. If you're an absolute beginner or someone who only plays 1 time a year and has no concern about breaking strings, a multifilament setup might be best for that type of person, simply because the risk for injury is significantly lower than with any other type. As well, it's also going to provide them a really nice, comfortable feel and protect themselves against injury.